God, it must be the distortion. Hi everybody, I'm Zach, and today's video is all about this lens. This is the Canon EF 24mm 1.4L lens. By the way, don't tell anybody this, but I'm recording this video on my X Pro 3. So a couple of weeks ago, I made a video about my EF 50mm 1.2L lens. I right now have two L lenses that I shoot with on my Canon system for all of my professional photography work, and it's the 50 1.2 and the 24 1.4. That's it. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 24mm, why I like it, what I use it for. I'm a portrait photographer primarily. Is this too wide for portraits? We will discuss. We'll discuss why I use those two focal lengths, why I just have those two lenses, how the other Canon L lenses sort of fit into a theoretical camera kit. And we'll talk about, who this lens is for, what it's good for, all of that. First of all, I just want to say, a lot of people talk about the 24mm focal length and claim that it's too wide for portraits. They're fine with 35mm, but it's the widest they'll go. Anything beyond that is too wide, there's too much distortion, it's not good for portraits, it's not flattering, blah de blah. As photographers, a lot of our work is subjective. It's a lot about what we prefer, what kind of work we're creating, what we want the image to look like. So if you don't like the look that a 24mm lens gives you, don't shoot with one. But I will say that I think this lens is great for portraiture. I was first introduced to this lens, I think, on Peter McKinnon's channel, surprise, and he was talking about how good this lens is for B-roll footage, for basically video. It's a great lens for video. This is the lens that I use for the majority of my YouTube videos. All these videos that you see on my channel, I would say 90% of them have been shot with this lens on my EOS R because it's just a great lens. It's a really fast aperture, it's a wide field of view, it works really well. It's quite heavy and quite bulky, sticks out a bit. I mean, compared with my 50 1.2, the 24 is taller. It's just a bit bigger. They're comparable in weight. I mean, they both have a good heft to them. The build quality is really premium on both of them, and they produce really beautiful images. Now, why are these two the only two L lenses that I shoot with? So one of the reasons I have these two is the 24mm will not get you anything close to the same look that the 50 will give you, and the 50 will not give you anything close to the same look that the 24 will give you. They each have a very unique character thanks to the focal length, and they're both super premium lenses. So now talking about the 24, this is a wider field of view, right? So there's a little bit of distortion. It's nothing major, it's nothing to prevent you from using this lens in any circumstance, in my opinion. It just has a different character than the 50. The 50 is more compressed. The 50 sort of surrounds your subject and makes them just look beautiful. It's like a beauty factory. It just makes everything look good, and the bokeh is insane. This being a wider lens, there's not as much compression. So even though you're shooting at 1.4, the background's not going to be as blurry as it would be on the 50mm at 1.4. So if you're doing environmental portraits, of which I have many examples, the 24 is an amazing lens to use because you can capture your subject and the background really beautifully. And there's a nice blur, but it's not going to just, completely destroy the background. You'll still be able to understand where your subject is and how they fit into their environment. This lens is extremely sharp, wide open. I've recently been shooting most of my portrait work at 1.8, not stopping down all the way, because I know at 1.8 my subject will be in focus. I'm not going to miss focus at 1.8, and I'm still going to get almost as much background blur at 1.8. This lens, you could probably shoot at 1.4. The 50mm 1.2 gets a little bit soft, wide open. It's still pretty sharp, but it just is softer, wide open than it is if you stop down in the aperture. So I don't always shoot at 1.2. This lens, I have no problem shooting at 1.4 if I need to, because it's just really sharp at 1.4, and I'm not so worried about missing focus on my EOS R, so I would use this lens at 1.4, 1.8 to be safe. you don't lose so much if you stop to 1.8. This lens is great when compared with the 50 1.2 because you can really get some amazing editorial shoots where you use the 24 to sort of get an overall scene of your subject in their environment or your subject in their clothes. You can do sort of low angle fashion shots that sort of exaggerate a subject's outfit or their body or something like that, like some of these examples. And then pair it with the 50 mil, which is a closer, tighter, traditional portrait look that will just make your subject look beautiful, right? And then you can sort of combine these images into one editorial shoot where you have a little bit of everything. Now, I like the 50 because it's versatile. You can shoot full-length portraits without having to back up, to Texas or whatever. You don't have to back up super far to get your subject in full length. It's more versatile, but it just doesn't have as much character as this lens does when you're shooting full body shots. So I really like to use the 24. It's just easier to use and it has a nice character to it that's sort of hard to describe, but you can definitely see it in the images that I'm putting up on the screen. This lens focuses really fast, it's comparable to any other L lens. I haven't noticed any strange flaring or anything like that with this lens. It's really solid. I haven't had any problems with it since I've used it. It's just been a really amazing go-to lens. So I would say don't be afraid of this lens for portraiture. Don't be afraid of the 24mm focal length. If you're interested in trying it out, I would say maybe rent the lens or buy a cheaper 24mm equivalent just to see what the 24mm field of view will give you. Obviously this particular 24 will look a little bit different than others, but experimenting with wider focal lengths than a 35, you might find that you enjoy focal lengths. There's a photographer that's pretty well known named Ben Sasso who has a blog, an educational blog, and he's on Instagram. I'll put his link below. But he's a Canon shooter and does a lot of amazing editorial work, and I'm just very inspired by his work right now. But if you read some of his more recent posts, he talks about using actually these two lenses, the 50 and the 24 for almost everything. I have my 50, I have my 24, they're very distinct. Nobody's going to confuse the two, and then yet together they create a set of images that is just cohesive. And I love working that way, where I have these two lenses, so it's less to choose from. It's just like, I know what the 50 is going to give me, I know what the 24 is going to give me. I can pair them together for the various shots that I need, and it gives me everything I need. I don't have to worry about, well, should I use the 35 for this or the 24? Like, which one should I use? Should maybe the 85 instead of the 50? No, it's just two lenses. I don't have to be worried about deciding which one to use when. I know exactly when and how I'm going to use these lenses. And I think that that's really valuable in terms of workflow and how you create your images. Like I said, I don't really have many negative things to say about this lens. I haven't had any issues with it. It's just been a joy to use since I got it. There's no weird flaring like there is for me on the 50 sometimes. It's just a really fantastic lens. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's great for video, it's great for photos. Definitely one to check out, and do not be scared to make portraits with a 24mm lens. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know, do you shoot with this lens? Have you shot with this lens? I'm really curious to know if other people enjoy making portraits with this lens, or if you don't, like why you don't like it. Let me know in the comments down below. I'd really love to hear. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Love is free.